That one was a little short. I hope you liked it, but we'll continue on with a few more. This one's known as My Son Made a New Friend. It was the worst thing to ever happen to our family. Every kid has an imaginary friend, right? That's normal. Nothing to be concerned about. Sometimes I just wonder whether there were any signs. Maybe I could have done something before it was too late. I don't know. I actually don't think I ever will. I've changed the names and locations for the purpose of this story. You will understand why soon enough. I guess I'm just looking for peace of mind, some solace in the fact that I did the right thing. The right thing for my kids. Emma, my wife, passed away when the children were so young enough that they barely have any true memories of her left. I always tried to tell as many stories about her as possible while they were growing up, in the hopes of planting those positive tales as memories of sorts. If your parents tell you a story enough times, the lines between fact and fiction often blur. The stories were true, of course. They just came from a time before the kids even existed. In 2007, I was handed the job of my dreams on a silver platter. A prominent politician was looking to have his memoir written and reached out to me personally. Apparently, he had seen a piece I wrote for the New York Times about dealing with the loss of my wife, and it sparked something inside of him. Having gone through a very similar experience himself, he wanted his ghostwriter to truly understand what would become the central theme of the book. Long story short, I was contracted for 90,000 words for no small fee. There was one problem: the deadline. I had one summer to get this memoir through creation, editing, and publication. Something about trying to beat a rival politician from the other party to the inevitable Christmas rush. I won't bore you with the details. The thing with being a writer is that the payment often comes in retrospect. You complete a job, you get paid for said job. And that was never a problem as a bachelor living out of a tiny apartment. As a single father of two, though, it's a totally different story. I didn't have enough money to send my kids off to summer camp, and I certainly didn't have time on my hands to work full-time on the memoir while also being Dad of the Year. At the time, I guess I thought time was better spent putting food on the table than smiles on faces. Oh, how I wish I could have that time back. Ever the politician, my client had a half solution for my whole problem. He had just purchased a large log cabin in the West Virginia forests for next to nothing. Something about an unmissable opportunity, a fire sale, a guaranteed win. In between renovating the property and getting back on the market, he offered the place to me and the kids for the entire summer. You can work on your writing while the great outdoors serves as a free nanny, my client said. What more could a child need than fresh air and a forest full of imagination? With little other choice, I begrudgingly accepted and tried to sell it to Chloe and Danny as an exciting adventure. Not sure if they really believed my words after so many years of false promises, but I received little in the way of pushback. We were going to West Virginia. The log cabin came as described. A little run down, but grand and beautiful. Faded oak stretched far into the treetops, meaning the view from the attic was framed with leafy green. The building sat in a near-perfect clearing, a thick expanse of woodland serving as nature's fence to the rear of the property, while a sparkling pond bubbled out front. Perhaps the politician had been right. For the first time in a while, my children's faces looked like they belonged to, well, children. It was the great adventure Dad had promised, at least it had the potential to be. By day, I tapped away at my laptop in the upstairs office, which offered me a perfect view of the clearing where my kids would run, play, and laugh. I was a writer, doing what I loved for a living. Maybe you could say I was living the dream. Chloe was still only 8 years old and Danny 3 years younger. In normal circumstances, far too young to be supervising themselves outside for so many hours on end. but it felt safe enough. There were no other properties for miles. The main road was a 15-minute drive down a dirt track away, and the bears would still be hibernating this time of year. It took me a while to get my head around it, but I soon came to view the cabin as a paradise. Nothing could hurt us here. "What did you get up to today, kiddos?" I asked around the fire as I did every evening. The days were for working and playing, but the evenings were reserved for my most important job, being a father. That meant home-cooked meals, board games, and old classic films made long before the kids were even born. "Chloe was designing some new dresses in her sketchbook, so I made a new friend," Danny reported proudly. "A new friend?" I gasped playfully. "This wouldn't happen to be an imaginary friend, would it?" "No," Danny snapped, offended. "Bruce is real." "Well, I'm glad that you're so popular," I winked at my son, and I paid it no heed. Tales of Bruce continued throughout our first weeks at the cabin. "Bruce showed me how to do an army crawl. Bruce showed me how to run like a bear. Bruce gave me a big hug today." It was sweet, totally harmless. In the absence of my company during the daytime, my son had simply invented someone new to look after him on his adventures in the wild. A child's mind is so innocent and adaptable like that, where an adult might crumble in isolation. A child evolves and enjoys it without batting an eyelid. I was proud of him. "Bruce came inside to play today because of the rain. I hope that's okay," he asked me one afternoon. "Oh, of course," I replied. "But I don't think it rained today, did it?" "Not here, silly," Danny giggled as if I'd said the most foolish thing he had ever heard. "Back where Bruce lives, it rained there." As I kissed my son on top of his head and placed his dinner in front of him, I asked, "And would Bruce like any dinner?" "He's not here now, is he?" Danny sighed this time, like he thought I was a complete fool. As I took my own place at the dinner table, I felt my socks rest against something rough beneath my feet. As I peered beneath the white tablecloth, I noticed a small deposit of wet mud on the floorboards. "What have I told you kids about leaving your muddy shoes at the front door?" I groaned. "This isn't our house, remember? We must be respectful." "Sorry, Dad," Danny replied. "That was Bruce. He doesn't know the rules." I fetched a dustpan and brushed from underneath the sink and crawled on all fours through the tablecloth curtain, and that's when I saw it. A size 12 boot print on the floor. At the time, I thought nothing of it, just kids being kids. Danny probably put my boots on as a joke and played outside in the soft mud around the pond. I didn't feel like giving him another lecture, not when his mischief stemmed from my own absence as a father, but that was just the first sign. Now that I look back with the power of hindsight, they came in a wave. To me, it was a wave of subtlety. Looking back now, I feel like banging against the glass and screaming out to myself, "Open your eyes! Can't you see? It's right there in front of you!" A chicken leg left out on the counter. I assumed Chloe or Danny got hungry and forgot to put it back. I didn't notice the bite that was a little too big. A scrawled note left underneath Danny's pillow. "Will you come to my birthday party?" it read. A child's game, I had assumed. Imagination. I didn't notice the subtle cursive letters that far exceeded even an 8-year-old's capabilities. Smashed plate kept on a shelf that was far too tall. A broken table leg that was far too tough for a child to damage. The creak of the floorboard when my children were already fast asleep. Moments that rarely warrant attention until you weave them together. Eventually it was Chloe who snapped me to attention. "What did you get up to today, kiddos?" I asked as I always did. "Chloe filled up her sketch pad, so she came to meet Bruce with me," Danny recalled with unbridled excitement. "He said that one day he'll show us the magical world he lives in." "That sounds amazing," I said with the universal wide-mouthed expression of a parent feigning wonder in the wonderless. Is that right, Chloe? Did you have fun with your brother today? Mm-hmm. Chloe just nodded. Bruce is kind of weird, though. Oh, so you can see Bruce too, can you? I asked. A shared imaginary friend, Chloe and Danny had never been good at sharing. Why wouldn't I be able to see him? Chloe replied, screwing her face up like I just made a bad smell. 1 month passed and I finally put the finishing touches on the first draft of the memoir. A moment I had been looking forward to for weeks. Not for the sense of accomplishment, not to see what the politician thought about the delicate chapters that dealt with his wife's passing, but for the freedom. However long it took between me sending the draft over and the publishers getting back to me, that was free time I had to spend with my kids. Hello, Chloe darling. I smiled as I stepped out into the late afternoon sunshine. You having a nice day? Where's your brother? Yes, thank you, Daddy. Chloe beamed at me. Look at these cool photos I've been taking with the camera Bruce gave me. What camera? I responded, concerned. And Danny? Where's your brother, my lovely? Aren't you supposed to be keeping an eye on him? That's okay, he's with Bruce, Chloe revealed, without batting an eyelid. I'm sure he will look after him. He's an adult after all. She handed me a Polaroid from a pile next to the camera. Panic. That's all I remember. The suffocating, drowning, gagging panic. The photo showed a smiling Danny with his arm around a scrawny, cloaked figure. A pond sparkled in the background. The same pond I was standing next to. The photograph cut off at the man's chin, but the color of his chalky, lifeless white skin still paints itself across the insides of my eyelids every time I close them to this day. How long has he been gone? I demanded, shaking my eldest child. Bruce came to visit just after lunchtime. What's wrong, Daddy? I drove up and down the dirt track like a maniac. I sprinted through the woods, risking a bear trap to the ankle. I screamed through the trees. Danny! Danny! Danny, where are you? When I finally circled back to the cabin where I'd left Chloe, safely locked inside, Danny was there waiting for me. Only, it wasn't my Danny. I recognized his eyes, that messy brown hair, and the chickenpox scar on the left side of his forehead, but this Danny was 5 inches taller. His cheekbones were more defined, his feet and hands were larger. This Danny was years older. You're back! Chloe grinned as I rushed my son indoors. She was completely unfazed by his appearance. Was it fun? I can't wait until tomorrow. Bruce says it's my turn to visit next. In the center of the living room, size 12 boot prints skulked from the back door to the sofa. I grabbed our things and left the cabin in the woods, only looking back long enough to see the flames catch the gasoline I trailed throughout the property. I agreed to forego my memoir fee in exchange for the politician looking the other way. He would forge the forensic evidence reports and claim his insurance, and pay me nothing. It was almost like he knew why I'd done it. I was fine with losing the money. I just needed that place to be gone. The place where my son lost 3 years of his life. The place where Bruce lives.